How's it going, guys? Welcome to K6 Outdoors. My name is Kyle. It's been a really cold January here in Iowa. We've had a decent amount of snow and we've had some frigid temperatures, just actual air temperatures down to negative 12 degrees at night. And I keep this detached garage, which has an insulated door, insulated walls, and I have insulation in the attic. I kept it at a continuous 45 degrees. I like to keep everything out here from freezing, and it's also just better on things in general, like batteries, my tractor, for instance. I have my wife's electric scooter. That type of stuff is just good to keep in an environment where it's not super harsh and cold. Obviously, it wouldn't get that cold anyway since it's insulated. It would still be below freezing. So I figured I would go ahead and give you guys an update. We'll pull up the reports from the Ecobee thermostat that I got from January's time frame when it was cold. I believe it said the average temperature outside was 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So that was throughout the entire month. The average was that high. Figure the night temps, high temps during the day. It's pretty cold overall. So to keep this at 45 degrees, you're going to see a little bit of runtime in order to make that happen. I think the general thought is electric is very expensive to run, and obviously it's the least efficient of the different heating. If you use LP or natural gas, electric is one of the least efficient. But it depends on what you want to do. We're not going to go into the thought or decision behind making a choice or not. But a couple of things that are nice about the electric heater is there's no vent needed. You could basically install it yourself if you feel comfortable with running a little bit of DIY electric. But if you don't feel safe, again, ask someone to do that. And there is no flame, so really the risk of explosion doesn't exist. Sawdust, if there's some chemicals in the air. This is just using an element. There's no spark or anything that involved to create the heat with this thing. Each different utility company is going to have a little different stipulations on the pricing, how it works out, cost. But ours is basically a 3-stage. You have first, second, and third. I believe there may even be a fourth, but I've never gotten that high. And each tier, it gets cheaper for us. So I believe it's like 10 cents a kilowatt hour for the first step, then 8, and then like 4.5 cents. So basically, it just gets cheaper the more you use each day. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pull up on the screen here and show you guys what it cost us and basically what the runtime was when it was as cold as it was out. And January is typically our coldest month of the year where this is going to run the most. So let's go and take a look at the data and say, is this affordable to run? What you could probably expect. Again, this is like 576 square feet, I believe. I can put here in the middle of the screen the cubic feet this garage is, but it's a 24 by 24 garage with 9-foot ceilings. And again, this has no issue with heating it to 45 degrees and keeping it there. Right now, I currently have it 55 out here, and it's just quite comfortable. So it does a good job in that regard. So let's take a look at the data.
So here is the Ecobee homepage. The Home IQ, that's what they call it. This is for the January 2022 runtime. This is for the thermostat in the garage. Don't let the numbers fool you because this is basing it upon a static set point of 72 degrees in a house. And again, this is probably normally set up in a garage, and some people probably don't care about this much, but I was just curious, so I figured I would install an Ecobee in the shop and see how it all played out. But the most important thing I want to show you is right here. It says 95 hours of runtime. That was the entire runtime for the month to heat the garage at 45 degrees as a set point. Let's hop in here and look at the data. So again, like I just said, the runtime report showing you 95 hours of runtime. They're saying it's super efficient because you're comparing it to a house, to a 72 degree hold benchmark. So ignore some of the savings stuff. I want to point out is it's basically the rating of how well the home, or in this instance the garage, retains thermal energy. So basically it's saying that it's really not too bad. It does a good job at maintaining the temperature inside when the weather gets really cold. Let me show you what that means. You look at the weather impact section. Let me get back here to January. If you take a look here at the data, you'll see on the right side the scale, basically the amount of hours it's heating and over the days. And you'll see here the black line is the outside temperature. And here on the left side is the scale of temperature. So when it's near negative 5 degrees, she's running about 6 hours a day. If you figure this out over 31 days, the average is 3 hours a day it's running. But when you look at the big picture here in the middle, we had some warmer days that brought it up. And it wasn't always that cold. If you look at the average on my utility bill, they're going to tell you that the average temperature for the month was 20 degrees. So somewhere probably in here, right? The data probably supports that if you figure the average out. Again, this just kind of shows you the impact of when it gets really cold outside. Obviously, it's going to run more often. So You need to keep that in mind too of what your set point is in the shop or your house, garage, whatever you're using the system in. So let's take a look at the system monitor page. You guys might find this interesting. I'm going to go back a month because this is reporting today. I was out in the shop today. If you look at this scale, again, this is from February 10th, which was today when I recorded this, you'll see that they're spaced out here. So up top, if you look at this, so on the right side is your key basically. So this top one is how long stage 1 is running, which is the 5,000 watt. This is stage 2, so how often the 7,500 watt stage is running. And then this is the fan. So basically the fan's running the entire time that the different stages are on, but it also stays on a few seconds later to keep all the, to get all the heat dissipated out of that element to save you there on the energy costs and make sure you're using all the heat up. Down here below, it's showing you the desired heat temperature. So you're going to see it's always at 45 degrees until I went up there. I bumped it up to 52. And then I was getting comfortable when I hit 52, so I set it back to 50 and left it there. So the orange is the desired set temp, the white is the actual indoor temperature, and the green is the actual outdoor temperature. So it shows you the spread. Let's go back to January so we can look at that data. So in January, you're going to see things ran quite a bit. If we go to the beginning of our cycle here, just let's say 2 a.m. as an example, at 2:05 a.m. on the 3rd until about 2:25 a.m. So it ran 20 minutes on that cycle from when it turned on to the fan shut off, and then it looks like it repeats it on average probably about every hour. Keeping in mind the desired set temperature was 45 degrees, the indoor temperature is going to fluctuate because I've got it set to have a swing value of 2 degrees. Basically what that means is it's going to let it go 2 degrees cooler than 45 degrees, and then it's going to kick the heat on and run until it gets back to its set temp. So you're going to see here on the white line it goes up and down because it's cooling down, and then the heat kicks on, it heats back up, and then it slowly cools back down because it's really cold outside and heats back up. Keeping in mind this runtime is based upon an outdoor temperature of -6 degrees. Throughout this report there are sections where we hit -10, and obviously it's going to run a little more frequently, but it's not a whole lot more than it does here. If you're looking at a net 55 degree temperature difference inside to outside, I mean, to keep it real, the house itself is running a ton, let alone a detached unit with no other source of heat. This is basically the only thing that's keeping it warm, which it always did a good job. You can see basically it took 20 minutes for it to pop up back up 2 degrees and then it sat there. In my eyes, this is pretty efficient, and really if you look at again the big picture, the weather impact just kind of tells the entire story. When it's really cold outside, it runs more often, which is obvious. If you also increase your inside temp, your set temp, it's going to make these run more often, especially as it gets colder. And you can see here too, when it's up closer to freezing, the heater really doesn't run all that much. And again, that's just kind of the overall pattern here, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the rod data. So this is some numbers pulled directly from my bill. And I wanted to show you guys, again, this is how ours is basically set up. You'll see that for 29 days, basically January 11th through February 9th, we used a total of 1,518 kilowatt hours. And how our utility company runs it is they have the different steps. So winter first step, winter second step, winter third step, and each tier has a different price. So for all intents and purposes, I know our house uses at least 30 kilowatt hours a day. Our monthly average was around 52.35 according to this report. So basically what happens here is each step's cheaper. So up to this many kilowatts per day is charged at this rate, up to this many kilowatts per day is charged at this rate, and so on and so forth. Based upon the 95 hours of runtime we just talked about on the Ecobee itself, we can make some assumptions to see maybe what worst case could be that it costs us just to run the heater. This is a 7,500 watt heater when it's running at high, on that high setting that we showed before, and it is 5,000 watts that's being used when it's on the low setting, which again is automatically variable because of the eco-friendly nature of this heater because it switches automatically between stages. So let's go ahead and see. Let's throw this in this calculator here. I just grabbed it from rapidtables.com. You can do this out longhand. This is just easier to show you on the screen to maybe make this more clear. But let's just assume that we're going to just use 8 cents. I know it's going to be cheaper because each day about 12 kilowatts is going to be at 4 cents. If we figure 8 cents, it'll give us some variation between the high and low. We'll just do 8 cents for the entire thing, even though it was run half at low and half at high, just to give you an idea. So we're going to say as a heater, And we're going to say that we were using 7,500 watts, and we were using it for a total of, well, if we figure that out, here, 95 divided by, divided by 31 days, because that's how many days it was figuring in the usage thing, just a hair over 3 hours. We're going to say 3 hours a day it runs, and we're going to say our usage is 8 cents. So basically, I would assume is worst case, saying it's always running at high, and it's running at 8 cents a kilowatt hour, that it's costing us $54.78 to run it, which makes about right amount of sense, right? If you look at my bill over here, $209.75 is my bill for the month. I'd say it's about $50 higher than it normally would be if I wasn't running the heat in the garage. So plus or minus, we're looking at $160, which is about normal. And so about, $54 to $60 to heat the garage when the average temperature was 20 degrees outside. And we had temperatures as low as 10 degrees below zero, like I mentioned there on the Ecobee looking at the reports. My average daily usage is around 52 kilowatt hours, which does seem like a lot, but I'm fairly confident by looking at this that, we used about 20 kilowatt hours a day. And it costs, if you look at it the way it's broken out here, if you want to figure out how many kilowatt hours it's running per hour, it's 7,500 divided by 1,000 gives you 7.5 kilowatts. So per hour, it's using 7.5 kilowatts. If you take that times 3, at 3 hours, we're using about 22 kilowatts a day, 22 and a half, which, like I said before, usually we run around 30 a day. So 22 and a half kilowatts a day to run the heater when it's been super cold. I think that's pretty manageable. Obviously, this is an average, and this is not all inclusive of the days it runs 6 hours, but on average, you're going to run that. It's going to run that. So for the entire month of 95 hours, if you divide it evenly, that's what you're going to run it at. Again, we're assuming that the heater's running at high, which we know it's not. We know it's running 5,000 watts half the time. So we really wanted to break that down and say we ran 5,000 for 1.5 hours a day. It's 8 cents per kilowatt hour. We're going to say costs $18 a month to run that. And if we want to change that back up to 7,500 for the other half, 18 plus 27, 30, that's $45. $45 for the month. So I would say between $45 and $60. So I'm going to go ahead with our monthly total of what we use. This $50 and under is what it's costing me to maintain a constant temperature of 45 degrees in the shop. There were a few days there in that cycle where I did bump it up to 55, 60. And was out there doing some work. So I can't say it's a continuous set point of 45 because I did spend some time out there. But it'll give you an idea that for less than $50, electric heat can keep your garage above freezing warm, which over a 4-month span, $200 to heat your garage for all winter, that's pretty cheap in my opinion. So again, one last look at the data here, just to point out, in a really cold January and December month, you're going to see that this was my December usage and this is my January usage, almost identical amount of power usage. Again, this December usage, this was the January usage, and those are the two coldest months of the year for us. In November and October, we're even using less power because the AC is off and there's no dehumidifier running in the basement. So some of the big units aren't running. So just a hair under 1,000. This is in early spring for us. So again, comparing January to January, you're going to see in February it starts to warm up a little bit. So we're going to drop off in power. And then in March, we really start to warm up a little bit in April and May. So heat runs even less because you can tell our electrical usage is even less during those months.
So for $50 a month or so, I'd say that's relatively affordable, in my opinion, for this little guy right here. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that. Do you think $50 a month is acceptable to keep your garage heated above freezing at 45 degrees all winter long when it's been, with wind chills, negative 25 degrees, negative 10 degrees actual air temperature? Would you buy an electric heater if you knew it was going to cost you $50 a month? Or would you still go a different route? Let me know down there in the comments below. I'd be curious to know what you guys think on the electric heat. Do you use it yourself? Do you consider it? Or are you only a natural gas or LP person? Or did you spring and do a heat pump unit, which that's got its own thing? Let me know what you got down here below in the comments. That seems pretty affordable to me to avoid having to cut a hole in the roof, run an LP line out here, run a tank. worry about a flame. This is pretty low maintenance. If you feel comfortable as a DIYer for doing electrical work and can run a drill, I think you probably can install these pretty easily. Again, that's kind of why it's attractive is, there's less you have to do to make this run. Hope you guys found this informative, and maybe this will help you make some decisions on whether or not this electric heater or electric heat in general is for you. It does a good job out here in the shop, and I believe this would also be good for, if you have any other temporary space you wanted or permanent space. Again, these are rated to be used in the shop. In anywhere where you need to produce heat. You could use them in your house if you really wanted to. Attached garage, greenhouse, they're safe as long as they're installed in a non-hazardous location where there's no exposure to water, a lot of fun stuff with the outdoors because it's not rated for outdoor use. So hope you guys found that informative. This has been a great heater. Again, I'll put a link above here again for this specific heater from King Electric. I highly recommend it. It's built here in the USA in Seattle, Washington, and it has been very, very reliable for me. Keep in mind, this is the Eco 2S Plus model. The Eco model, this specific heater regulates itself on its high and low settings. So basically using the lowest wattage possible, which on this heater is 5,000 watts, and its high setting, which is 7,500 watts. It uses those two different wattages basically on its own. It regulates that to maintain the space you're in. This is the Eco model where it's supposed to use less power and be more friendly on your bills. If you guys liked the video, give me a thumbs up. That's the best thing you can do to help me out. If you guys are not a part of the YouTube family and you guys like this kind of content, if you like outdoors stuff, you like tractors, product reviews, anything like that, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe button. And if you want to hit that little bell next to it and make it turn gray, it'll let you know when I post more videos like this right away. So you can check them out if you want to or save them for later. Thanks for stopping into K6 Outdoors. My name's Kyle. Take care, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. We'll see ya.